I asked when the engagement dinner would be, and my daughter said, "We had it last night." Those words echoed in my head like a gunshot in an empty church. I stood frozen in my kitchen, phone still pressed to my ear, watching the steam rise from my morning coffee as if nothing had changed, but everything had. "Mom, are you still there?" Amber's voice was casual, almost bored. "I'm here." I managed to keep my voice steady. "What do you mean you had it last night? The engagement dinner?" "Yeah, it was just a small thing at Ryan's parents' house, nothing fancy." My coffee grew cold as we spoke. I'd been planning to ask what I could bring, what I should wear. I had a new dress hanging in my closet, bought specifically for this occasion, navy blue with delicate silver threading, modest but elegant. The price tag had made me wince, but I justified it as an investment, a mother-of-the-bride necessity. I thought I would be invited." The words came out smaller than I intended. "Mom, you know how things are between you and Ryan. After what happened at Thanksgiving, 4 months ago, Ryan had made a comment about my late husband, Amber's father, that struck me as disrespectful. Something about how Jack had been old school in his politics. I'd responded sharply, saying Ryan hadn't known Jack well enough to characterize him that way. The tension had lingered through dessert. That was it. Or so I thought. That was just a disagreement, Amber. Adults have disagreements. It wasn't just that, it's everything. The way you look at him, the comments about his job, how you're always bringing up Dad. I pulled out a kitchen chair and sank into it. Outside my window, the Pennsylvania spring was asserting itself. The maple tree I'd planted when Amber was born, 26 years ago now, was budding. Jack and I had chosen that tree together, dreaming of the days our daughter would climb it, perhaps someday bring her own children to play beneath it. I'm sorry if I've made him uncomfortable. I didn't realize. My free hand fidgeted with the gold band I still wore. "But Amber, I'm your mother. How could you not invite me to your engagement dinner?" "It wasn't my call, Mom. Ryan's parents organized it, and they thought it would be better to keep it small. Just family. Just family." The words cut deep. "I am family, Amber." Silence stretched between us, filled only by the ticking of the kitchen clock Jack had hung when we first bought this house. 15 years gone, and I'd never replaced it. Never wanted to. "Look, Mom, what's done is done. We'll make sure you're involved in the wedding planning, I promise." I could hear the dismissal in her voice, that slight tone of impatience she'd developed in recent years. Once Amber had told me everything, from playground politics to college heartbreaks. Somewhere along the way, that changed. I couldn't pinpoint when exactly. After Jack died, when she moved to Philadelphia for graduate school, when she met Ryan 2 years ago. "Who was there?" I asked quietly. "Just Ryan's parents, his sister Kayla and her husband, Ryan's best friend Mark, and me. 6 people. A small dinner that could easily have accommodated one more. Me." "I see. Mom, please don't make this a big deal. The wedding is still months away. There'll be plenty of time for everyone to celebrate together." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "When did you get engaged, Amber? You never actually told me." Another pause. 2 weeks ago, Ryan proposed at Longwood Gardens, by the fountains. 2 weeks. My daughter had been engaged for 2 weeks and hadn't told me. Hadn't called or texted or posted anything on social media that I could see. I suddenly wondered what else I didn't know about her life. "That sounds lovely," I said, because what else could I say? It was perfect. "Listen, Mom, I've got to run. I have a client meeting in 30 minutes. Let's talk this weekend, okay? Maybe we could have lunch on Sunday." Sunday, 4 days away. Once, my daughter would have driven the hour and a half from Philadelphia to Allentown the moment she got engaged, just to see my face when she showed me the ring. "Sunday would be nice," I said. "Your place or mine? Let's meet halfway. That cafe in Doylestown you like. Not her place, not mine. Neutral ground." "Okay, noon. Perfect. Love you, Mom." "Love you too, sweetie." After we hung up, I sat in my quiet kitchen, looking at the photos magnetized to my refrigerator. Amber's graduation, our trip to Maine 5 years ago, Jack holding newborn Amber in the hospital, his face a mixture of terror and joy. A family that now existed only in pictures and memory. I picked up my cold coffee and poured it down the sink. Then I opened my laptop and began searching for Mother of the Bride etiquette. I needed to understand the rules of a game that had apparently started without me. The Doylestown Cafe was crowded when I arrived, 15 minutes early. I claimed a table by the window, ordered a chamomile tea, and watched the door. Sunday brunch crowds filed in, young couples, elderly pairs, families with children tugging at sleeves. The normalcy around me felt like a play I was watching from the wings. Amber arrived precisely at noon, dressed in a crisp white blouse and fitted jeans I didn't recognize. Her blonde hair, so like her father's, was pulled back in a sleek ponytail. As she weaved between tables, I noticed the ring immediately, a sizable diamond that caught the light with every movement of her hand. "Hi, Mom." She leaned down to kiss my cheek, the scent of an unfamiliar perfume surrounding her. Not the vanilla she'd worn since high school. "You look beautiful, honey." I gestured to the chair across from me. "New outfit? This? No, I've had it for ages." She settled in, placing her phone face up on the table. It buzzed continuously with notifications. The waiter appeared, and Amber ordered an iced coffee and avocado toast without opening the menu. A regular, apparently, though she'd never mentioned this cafe before suggesting it. "So," I said after the waiter left, "tell me about the proposal. The gardens must have been beautiful." Amber's face softened as she described Ryan kneeling beside the fountains at sunset, the small box in his trembling hands, the small crowd that had gathered to applaud. She extended her hand, allowing me to properly examine the ring. "It's stunning," I said, and meant it. "Ryan has good taste. He had help from his mother. She knows the jeweler." Of course she did. I sipped my tea to hide whatever expression might have crossed my face. "Did you know it was coming, the proposal?" Amber shrugged. "We talked about it. I knew it would happen eventually, but the timing was a surprise." Our food arrived, creating a natural pause. I watched as Amber arranged her napkin, adjusted her silverware, took a careful bite of her toast. These practiced, measured movements. When had my impulsive, enthusiastic daughter become so controlled? "I've been thinking about the wedding," I offered. "If you'd like, we could look at venues together. I'd be happy to help with the costs, too." Amber put down her fork. "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. We've already chosen a venue, the Marion in Cinnaminson." The name meant nothing to me, but from Amber's tone, I gathered it was significant. "Oh? When did you tour it?" "Last weekend. Ryan's mother arranged it. They had a cancellation for October 12th, so we booked it right away. Good venues go fast. October 12th, less than 6 months away." My tea turned bitter in my mouth. "That's soon." "It felt right," Amber said, her gaze dropping to her plate. "And with Ryan's promotion coming up in November, it made sense to do it before he gets too busy." Each sentence added another brick to the wall I could feel rising between us. A wall I hadn't known was under construction. "I see. Well, I'd still like to contribute. Your father set aside money for your wedding. It's been in a separate account all these years." Amber's eyes flickered up at the mention of Jack. "Ryan's parents are covering most of it. They insisted, but you could handle the rehearsal dinner if you want." "The rehearsal dinner. The consolation prize." "Of course," I said, my voice steady despite the hurt swelling inside me. "Whatever helps." Amber's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, her fingers hovering over the screen before she reluctantly turned it face down. "Sorry, work never stops." "On a Sunday? We're launching a new campaign tomorrow." I nodded as if I understood, though Amber rarely shared details about her marketing job anymore. Once, she'd called me every time she landed a new account, excited to describe her creative strategies. "Amber," I began, carefully choosing my words, "I feel like there's something you're not telling me, about why I wasn't invited to the engagement dinner." Her shoulders tensed. "Mum, please, not here." "Where then? When? Because it feels like you're shutting me out of one of the most important times in your life, and I don't understand why." She sighed, pushing her half-eaten toast away. "Ryan thinks you don't approve of him, that you compare him to Dad and find him lacking." "That's not true," I protested, though even to my own ears the denial sounded hollow. "Isn't it?" Every time we visit, you tell stories about Dad, how he built the deck himself, how he coached my softball team, how he was the most honest man you knew. I'm just keeping his memory alive. For you. For you, Mom. I have my own memories of Dad. I don't need the constant reminders." The words stung like a slap. "So Ryan feels threatened by the ghost of your father? See, that's exactly the problem. The sarcasm, the little digs. Ryan says, I interrupted, my patience finally fraying. "What about what you say, Amber? What do you think?" She looked out the window, her profile so achingly like Jack's that for a moment I couldn't breathe. "I think," she said slowly, "that I want a fresh start. Ryan and I are building something new, and it gets complicated when you're always dragging the past into it. The past. My life with Jack. The family we'd created, reduced to baggage that my daughter wanted to set down and walk away from. I never meant to make things complicated for you," I said, fighting to keep my voice from breaking. "I just want to be part of your life." "You are part of my life, Mom, but you have to accept that it's changing. Ryan is my priority now." Before I could respond, her phone buzzed again. This time she picked it up. "I'm sorry, I have to take this. It's Ryan's mother about the florist." She stood, already answering the call. "Hi, Eleanor. Yes, I'm just finishing brunch." She walked outside, leaving me alone at the table with 2 half-finished meals and a conversation that felt just as incomplete. Through the window, I watched my daughter pacing on the sidewalk, animated as she spoke to her future mother-in-law, Eleanor, who knew the jeweler, who arranged the venue tour, who organized the engagement dinner to which the actual mother of the bride wasn't invited. I paid the bill before Amber returned, an act of quiet defiance that she probably wouldn't even notice. When she slid back into her seat, her expression had changed, brighter, energized. "Sorry about that. Eleanor found the most amazing florist in Princeton. She wants us to go see them next weekend. Actually," she hesitated, "she suggested you might want to come along, if you're free. An olive branch, extended by someone else's hand." "I'd like that," I said, swallowing my pride. "Text me the details." As we said goodbye on the sidewalk, Amber hugged me briefly, already distracted by another incoming call. I watched her walk to her car, wondering when exactly I had become an afterthought in my daughter's life and what I could possibly do to change it. The Princeton Florist shop was housed in a converted Victorian home, its gardens a living showcase of their artistry. I arrived early, parking my sensible sedan beside a sleek black Range Rover with a Harrington Real Estate decal on its door. Ryan's family business, the empire his father had built and where Ryan served as vice president of development. Inside, the scent of lilies and roses wrapped around me like a physical presence. A bell chimed softly as I entered, and a young woman with a tablet approached. "Welcome to Blumfields. Do you have an appointment?" "I'm meeting my daughter and her future mother-in-law, Amber Miller and Eleanor Harrington." Recognition flickered across her face. "Of course. The Harrington-Miller wedding. They're already in the garden room. Right this way." She led me through a series of rooms, each dedicated to different styles of arrangements. Traditional, modern, rustic, avant-garde. A taxonomy of taste that made me suddenly conscious of my practical clothing and sensible shoes. The garden room was a glass-enclosed space at the back of the house, filled with orchids and trailing vines. Amber and Eleanor sat at a wrought-iron table, heads bent together over a portfolio. They looked up as I approached, and for a moment I saw them as a stranger might. 2 elegant blonde women, perfectly coordinated in understated designer clothes, a study in privileged ease. Eleanor rose first, extending a manicured hand. "Linda, at last. I'm Eleanor Harrington, Ryan's mother. I've heard so much about you." Had she? I wondered what exactly she'd heard as I shook her hand. Her grip was firm, her smile practiced. She was perhaps 10 years older than me, though she'd fought those years with expensive weapons. "It's nice to meet you," I said, meaning it despite everything. This woman was to be family after all. "Mom, you're right on time," Amber said, standing to kiss my cheek. "Eleanor was just showing me the most amazing centerpiece ideas." I settled into the third chair at the table, noticing the half-empty champagne flutes, a celebration I'd arrived just in time to join. We're thinking garden roses, ranunculus and anemones in blush and ivory, Eleanor explained, turning the portfolio toward me, with touches of burgundy for depth. Très chic, but still romantic. The arrangements were undeniably beautiful, though nothing like the wildflower bouquet Jack had presented me on our wedding day, a memory I kept to myself. "They're lovely," I said. "Amber, what do you think?" My daughter beamed. "I love them. Eleanor has the most amazing taste." I watched as the florist appeared with a fresh glass of champagne for me and refills for the others. As she poured, I noticed how comfortably Amber leaned toward Eleanor, how naturally they continued their conversation about table settings and lighting effects. There was an easy rapport between them that made my chest ache with something I refused to name as jealousy. "Linda," Eleanor said suddenly, focusing her full attention on me, "Amber tells me you have a lovely garden. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these arrangements." It was graciously done, pulling me into their circle. I found myself discussing the merits of different blooms, the sustainability of seasonal choices, the sentimental meanings of certain flowers. Eleanor nodded thoughtfully at my suggestions, even incorporating several into the revised plan. "You know," she said as the florist stepped away to prepare sample arrangements, "my own mother-in-law was challenging when Charles and I married. She had very fixed ideas about how things should be done. I met her gaze, surprised by this unexpected confidence. "How did you handle it?" She smiled ruefully. "Poorly at first. I was determined to establish my independence, which meant rejecting almost everything she suggested." She glanced at Amber, who was texting rapidly on her phone. "I didn't realize then what I know now, that weddings aren't really about the bride and groom. They're about families coming together with all their messy histories and expectations." I felt something shift between us, a small opening. "It's hard to find the balance," I admitted, "between holding on and letting go." Eleanor nodded, her expression softening, "especially when you've already had to let go of so much." Amber told us about her father. "I'm truly sorry for your loss." The simple acknowledgement, spoken without awkwardness or pity, loosened something in my chest that had been tight for weeks. Years, maybe. "Thank you," I said quietly. "Jack would have loved to see this day." "I'm sure he would." She hesitated, then added, "About the engagement dinner, that was my mistake. Charles and I were so excited when Ryan called with the news, we arranged it all in a rush. It wasn't until afterward that I realized we should have coordinated with you." It wasn't a full apology, but it was something, a recognition. Before I could respond, Amber returned to the table, tucking her phone away. "Sorry about that. Ryan's just checking in." She looked between us curiously. "What did I miss?" "We were just agreeing that the burgundy accents are perfect," Eleanor said smoothly. "Don't you think, Linda?" "Absolutely," I agreed, following her lead. Some conversations weren't meant for this moment. The rest of the appointment passed in a flurry of decisions and details. Sample arrangements were brought out, photographed, refined. The three of us fell into an unexpected harmony, each contributing ideas that built upon the others. By the time we finished, the wedding flowers had evolved into something that seemed to reflect all of us. Eleanor's sophistication, Amber's romantic spirit, and touches of the natural world that I had always loved. As we prepared to leave, Eleanor checked her watch. "I'm famished. Why don't we all have lunch? There's a wonderful little bistro just down the street." Amber looked uncertain. "I told Ryan I'd meet him for a late lunch." "Bring him along," Eleanor said decisively. "Charles is in the city, but I'd love for the four of us to chat about the rehearsal dinner. Linda, I understand you'll be hosting?" "Yes," I said, caught off guard by the shift in plans, but unwilling to retreat. "I'd appreciate your input." In the bistro, seated at a corner table with white tablecloths and gleaming silverware, I watched as Ryan greeted his mother with easy affection, then extended that warmth to include me. He was handsome in the conventional way of privileged young men, tailored clothes, confident smile, firm handshake, the kind of man who expected good things to happen to him, And so they did. "Linda, good to see you," he said, sliding into the chair beside Amber. "Mom tells me the flowers are going to be amazing." "They will be," I agreed. "Your mother has excellent taste." Eleanor waved away the compliment. "We all contributed. That's how these things should work. Combining traditions, creating something new together." She raised her water glass. "To family, old and new." We clinked glasses, and I felt Amber's eyes on me, searching. I met her gaze and smiled, a real smile that reached my eyes. Over lunch, the conversation flowed more easily than I could have imagined. We discussed the rehearsal dinner, a casual affair at a historic inn near the venue, with a menu that would incorporate dishes from both families' traditions. Ryan mentioned his father's famous grilled bourbon salmon. I offered my blueberry cobbler, Jack's favorite dessert. When Ryan excused himself to take a work call, Eleanor leaned forward. "Linda, Charles and I would love to host a proper engagement party. For everyone. In 3 weeks, perhaps. Nothing too formal, just a chance for our families and close friends to celebrate together." "That sounds wonderful," I said, genuinely moved by the gesture. Amber reached across the table and took my hand, something she hadn't done in years. "Mom, I'm sorry about how all this started. I should have told you about the engagement right away. And I should have been more welcoming to Ryan," I admitted. "Change is hard for me since your father died." "I know," she said softly. "I miss him too, but he'd want us to move forward, right?" "He would." I squeezed her hand. "He'd be so proud of you, Amber, and he'd probably tell Ryan he's a lucky man." "He is," Ryan said, returning to the table in time to catch my words. He placed his hand over Amber's and mine, completing the circle. "Lucky to be joining both your families." "What?" As we finished lunch, making plans for the engagement party and beyond, I realized that what had felt like an ending, my daughter moving away from me, was actually a beginning of a different kind. Not the family I had built with Jack, but a new configuration with its own possibilities. On the drive home, my phone buzzed with a text from Amber. "Love you, Mom. Thanks for today." I pulled over to respond, not wanting to wait. "Love you too. Always have. Always will." Then I added, "Your dad would love the flowers we chose." Her reply came instantly. "I know. Maybe we can plant some in your garden after the wedding. Start a new tradition." I smiled, picturing the maple tree in my yard, how it had grown from a sapling to a sturdy presence, its roots deep and its branches reaching ever outward, how it remained, season after season, even as everything around it changed.